pop up as they do, so I have to handle a few things. So I'll be making a statement, and then I'll take a few questions if I can. First of all, again, good morning. My name is Sean Barnes, Shonbarnes. I think we've all met by now. The Chief of Police for the Madison Police Department, giving a brief update on a homicide which occurred in our city. Yesterday morning, around 10:45 a.m., officers were dispatched to 7933 Tree Lane in reference to a man who had been shot in the parking lot. Officers found our victim, a black male around 39 years of age, lying with multiple gunshot wounds. It's important to note that officers were in the area and responded within 2 minutes of the call going out. Officers rendered aid until the paramedics arrived, but unfortunately, the victim was pronounced dead on the scene and was not subsequently transported to the hospital. This makes our second homicide of the year and our first homicide of the year gun-related. A motive is unclear at this time. However, our investigation revealed that there was an ongoing conflict between the victim and the suspects. We know from our investigations that the suspects ran from the scene, and through the amazing and diligent work of our detectives, the suspect was later apprehended with the assistance of the Sun Prairie Police Department, which we definitely owe them a debt of gratitude. The suspects in this case who were apprehended within 3 hours of this incident was Jadarius Davis. He is a black male. He is about 30 years of age or in his 30s. He has been charged with aiding and abetting a felony and possession of firearm by a felon. Mr. Charles Washington White, also a black male in his 30s, has been charged with first-degree intentional homicide and felony possession of a firearm. I certainly want to thank the men and women of the Madison Police Department, all detectives, investigators, officers, non-commissioned staff who worked together as a team. It was unbelievable listening to the radio and watching how the officers worked together. Interestingly enough, it was my ride-along day. So I was out doing a ride-along when the call came out. So I was able to listen to it from start to finish and just listen to the coordination, the supervision, the leadership of the sergeants on scene, and of course our detectives who were working probably while driving to ensure that things were done as they should be. And so because of their diligence, we were able to solve this in a matter of hours. I also want to thank the Madison Fire Department, our paramedics who responded and worked extremely hard with us, the Sun Prairie Police Department, and our NRO for Tree Lane. It was an off day for him, and he answered the phone and worked with detectives to get video footage and surveillance footage to help get this case resolved. If I can answer a question, a few questions, I will do that. But let me just simply say that, we've been working extremely hard on gun violence. It's one of our strategic priorities, and I really think that we're certainly headed in the right direction. But we need the help of our community. We know, and I've spoken about this before, and you've heard me, when there are conflicts going on, we need our community to be the cooler head if we're not there. We need you to call early. We need you to call often when you see these conflicts arise, because you just may be preventing a senseless tragedy like the one we saw yesterday in broad daylight in an area that was about 100 feet from a playground during spring break. And so, again, we need the community's help. The police department can only do so much because we can't be everywhere at all times, but we do believe that we have a strategy, and that involves community partnerships like our media, getting things out in a timely fashion where we can give that information. So again, we've made a swift resolution to this unfortunate incident. We were able to make 2 arrests. We feel really good about the case that we have, and with that, I'll take any questions.
Chief, the property where the shooting took place is under a city designation as a chronic nuisance premises, and that designation goes back to 2018. Can you describe for us your concerns about that residential property, given this latest event being fatal violence?
Absolutely. So when that happens, one of the things that we look at is crime and also disorder. And so we try to take a problem-oriented policing approach to that project, and we have done that. Our West Division has a problem-oriented policing project going on right now. We have an NRO actually assigned there. Now, yesterday was his day off, and you can't work all the time, but there's also agreements to do security. I don't know where they are on that. And as early as this morning, we again met with the stakeholders involved in that in this property to talk about what we can do. But yes, it is very, very concerning. I've dealt with these types of properties before, these types of disorders, and I can tell you it will not be resolved by policing alone. This is not a problem that you can arrest your way out of. This is a problem that's going to take the cooperation of everyone in the community. This is a problem that's going to take the landlords and owners to take some ownership of their property and who you're allowing on that property and what type of behavior you expect. And it's also going to take some cooperation with our partners, as we saw yesterday, and the other parts of the criminal justice system to hold people accountable, like last night when they do create victims.
Besides the location of this being the location of the shooting, what else was there that tied the events to this property? I mean, did somebody live there, or what was the nexus?
Well, that's a part of the motive, and to be honest with you, we need to do more work on that. You know, motive is about determining what was going through someone's mind at the time, why two people happened to come together at the same property who had conflict. It's going to take a little bit more work before we can say with a definitive why the both of them got there today or yesterday with ill intentions toward each other.
Can you tell us anything about the relationship between the suspects and the victim, or between the two suspects themselves?
No, we just know that there was ongoing conflict between the two. We're not sure or haven't verified what that conflict was about. Again, that goes to motive, and we want to be sure, because you're speaking to someone's intent, you're speaking to why someone didn't like, and the only one of those persons can tell us that right now.
Were these parties from the Madison area longtime residents? Were they recently moved to Madison? Do you know any backgrounds on their history?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have any backgrounds on that, but we can certainly get you that information a little later on. That's a good question. I don't know
Okay.
from which they come.
And then at the earlier press conference yesterday, you noted that the person who had injuries, had serious injuries, and now you've restated that they died on the scene.
Yeah.
Is there any deep reasons why perhaps there was maybe some, I guess, confusion on the time of death and why you weren't able to?
We don't think it was confusion. We have to wait for the medical examiner. I'm not a medical personnel. That's not my area of expertise. The only thing we know is that someone suffered from multiple gunshot wounds. We did say that, but the extent of that, I'm not qualified to pronounce someone deceased, and so we don't like saying things that we can't verify, especially when it comes to someone's health, specifically if someone has died or not.
So I don't think we knew it was a homicide until hours later. I mean, why was that?
Yeah, again, I'm not qualified to deem the person deceased or a homicide. That's what the medical examiner does, and so we've been pretty consistent with that. Those of you who were out there, you probably saw the medical examiner show up, and she told me not to give that information until she had finished completing her work, and so I do not get involved when other people are using their areas of expertise.
What time was the medical examiner able to confirm that victim had been deceased?
I don't have the exact time, but I can get that for you.
Chief, on Thursday, you highlighted the department's efforts to take illegal guns off the street. And there was obviously a nexus between those statements and information you were providing to us about the shooting. Have you now learned whether that weapon, the weapon that committed the homicide, is illegal?
Yeah, we have not recovered that weapon yet, but we're still working to recover that weapon. Certainly what we'll do is what we call an ATF trace form. We do that on any weapon that's recovered to determine the origin of it. And to be honest with you, Tony, that's been very, very successful in many police departments, especially this one, to determine the nexus of those. How are those weapons coming into our city? Are they coming from another city? I won't call cities because, you can get in trouble for that. But, are those weapons coming from cities that are near Madison? Are those weapons purchased here in Madison? I think it's a very good question. And certainly as we work through this investigation, and hopefully we will be able to recover that. And if we do, we can get you that information.
Is the victim from Madison?
The victim is from Madison, yes.
Chief, going forward, you talk about community engagement also to try to make this property safer.
Yeah.
Are you considering any changes to NRO assignments, given the fact that, you know, it's evidently not 24/7 or even
Yeah.
7 days a week because
Yeah.
people need days off? Will there be any change because of the history of this property?
No, we don't want to create a situation where people feel they're being over-policed, and we certainly don't want to create a situation where people feel like the police are the 100% answer to your problems. Certainly, we're
But
there.
even after a broad daylight shooting, you know, the feet from a playground?
Yeah, so what we have done is we have stepped up patrols in the area, just like we have done over in Meadowlands, and I know you've been doing some reporting on that. That's customary when you have things, because number one, we want to reinsure your public, which is very, very important. And then number two, you want to ensure that there's no backlash or there's no residual effects of what happens in violence. But as far as changes to the NRO program, we're not going to make any changes. I really like what the NRO is doing there. And again, he was, to me, was extremely helpful yesterday on his day off to be able to call in and help us work through a few problems.
Chief, there was a vehicle that was towed away from the scene. That vehicle did not have license plates on
Yeah.
the front or rear, and what I've heard is terms of ghost cars. Is there any relationship that that vehicle had with the crime, and did that ghost car have any difficulty in the investigation trying to have it, I guess, resolved quicker because of the no plates?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the ghost car term or phenomenon, but what I can tell you is that the car was associated with the victim, and once we learned that, we took it to see if there's any evidentiary value to it. So, all right, thank you so much. And if you need anything, I'll step aside just for a quick second.
Now is always on.
Get the Channel 3000 app, activate the push alerts, and we will send you breaking news, traffic, and weather alerts as it happens.
The Channel 3000 app. Get it now.
Powered by News 3 Now.